All right, I think we're good to start now. All right, cool. Yeah, so, thank you all for those who, came out to this. This is going to be the Master of Rituals training portion. We're going to walk through, what's the chat? Okay, thank you. All right. So, we're just going to walk through the Master of Rituals position, both from a virtual standpoint and from a in-person standpoint, either or. It's going to be, tips and tricks to figure out how to do either one. You have to be prepared for both in an environment like this. We have to be, ready to go regardless of what your school looks like in the future. And there's always opportunities to take things that you're not doing now and apply them, when we do go back to in-person. So, about me. So my name is Corey Reddy. I'm the Regional Manager of Rituals and Risk Reduction for the Atlantic Gulf Coast and the Atlantic Metro regions. I saw a few of you on here, when I was looking through, so I appreciate the couple of you that did come on out and, took the time to learn from this tonight. All your chapters are, different regardless of the region you're in. So there's no one universal experience when it comes to AKSI, and, you're all able to learn from one another in an environment like this. So just looking at the responsibilities of the Master of Rituals. So, first one being, service. You are a member of a team in this environment. So yes, you have your ritual responsibility. Yes, you have, midterm interview, court of honor, induction, initiation, etc. But you are one of many in your chapter. And, the responsibilities and goals of the executive board should be one in with the goals that you have in your position. And when an executive board is working efficiently, whether it's in person or it's virtually, other people will come to your aid when you need them, and you should be able to work towards them accomplishing their goals as well. So understand that you are not just a Master of Rituals, you are, someone who works towards the overall improvement and direction of the chapter. Direct responsibilities here would be also understanding the significance of fraternity history. So rituals in particular are one of the few things that really separate us from a club, let's say. A club you can come and go as you are, but the fraternity from both a international perspective as well as a local perspective, each one of you has a unique history over the course of your time in Alpha Kappa Psi. Going from 1904 to where we are now, every chapter is unique. Every chapter has their own, journey to where to get to where they are now. My chapter was founded in 1926. So, we have a little bit more history there. We have a little bit more documents and, I guess, rooted history within the fraternity. But I work with chapters that were founded in 2016. So in a situation like that, you got to create your own history there. So just understanding where your chapter came from, the history of AKSI as a whole. And then if you are a younger chapter, setting the path forward based on what you've been taught, based on, what's been passed down to you, and creating good practices for brothers that come after you. Oversee and execute rituals. This is pretty straightforward. You are the Master of Rituals. So just making sure that your open and closed rituals are up to par, whether this is virtual or it's in person, that you know what you're doing, and that you can execute these rituals to the best of your ability and make this an experience that the chapter gets something of value from. And then maintaining the inventory and the ritual equipment. So we're going to get more into this in later slides, but there is a specific set of materials that you need to perform these rituals. It's your job as Master of Rituals to keep that on your possession, make sure it's up to date, make sure nothing's damaged or out of stock. And then we're going to talk about the ways on how to replace those things in the event that you do need to update your trunk. All right. So utilizing Zoom, so we are going to shift towards the virtual element just because that is something that's going to be impacting most, if not all of you in the fall, if it hasn't impacted you already. So, we're using Zoom in this example, but really if you have any sort of secure virtual environment to, conduct a ritual in, this is the way to move forward with it. So understanding security, enabling a waiting room, setting a meeting password, things like that, allow you to understand who's who's in this ritual, are they supposed to be there, what is their role. These are things that are going to help you along the way. So, setting that password and making sure only the correct people who have that password, get access to it and can come in, managing the participants. So removing them if needed. So this could be, someone who gets the password by accident, someone who misplaces it, and there's a security issue. It can mean something like that. Or, if someone is having issues with their, being unable to mute themselves, and it's a distraction for the ritual, you can do something about that. If someone is acting unruly in general and, isn't going to, conform to the behavior of a ritual, this is where you can step in as a master of rituals and say enough is enough. This is my ritual as much as it is someone else's, and, it's your job to kind of set the pace there. So scheduling, ultimately communicate changes to your ritual dates with your regional management team and CERC. So, your CA, SD, your RD, your RM if you have one, and then find out who your CERC is. I know for my regions, you would email that to Coral. So if you're in area 1 or 2, you wouldn't have Coral, you would have your CERC. But in a situation like that, just because in the event that something changes and you don't, inform those, who have the ability to really manage it and help you with it, it ends up just creating problems for both the chapter and for, the Heritage Center as well. And, that really comes into play for things like induction and initiation, where there are fines for not reporting in time. So those are judged based off the dates that are reported. So if you say that a ritual is going to occur on July 15th and it doesn't occur until July 21st, you'll get billed on, your pledges to the Heritage Center would need to be reported by the 22nd, so 1 week from the 15th, even though in your eyes you would see it 1 week out from the 21st. So, if you do want to make those changes, please let people know ahead of time, just because, there have been chapters in the past who have gotten fined for not reporting in time. And this is just an easy thing to get on top of and, make sure that it's not going to happen. Consider the time zones of participants. So a pledge events can only occur between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. So that's the risk management policy of Alpha Kappa Psi. Rituals, especially midterm interview, a court of honor, an induction or initiation, are pledge events. You have pledges present. So while this is not a problem if you're all in the same time zone, you can just schedule it within that 15-hour window. A noon ritual for you on the East Coast of the United States is a midnight ritual to an international student in China. So take that into consideration when you are planning these rituals, when you are planning these events. What is going on with someone else in another part of the world? And how can I create a time that, works for everyone? If you want to do, if it's, let's use that 12-hour difference again. If you want to do something at 8 a.m. your time, which is 8 p.m. their time, that would work. It would just, it would look a little bit different, but it is what it is. That's acceptable. Just, take it into consideration and do what's best for everyone involved. You can hold multiple rituals to work with different time zones and schedules. So I know a couple of chapters, both in the Atlantic Gulf Coast and the Atlantic Metro, did this last semester, where they had international students or they had West Coast students who were, 3 hours behind or 12 hours ahead, or, some sort of time difference that made it inconvenient. So, if you want to hold an initiation for someone abroad in the morning and then do another initiation with the rest of that pledge class later in the day, that's definitely an option for you to consider in that case. It's the same for, the public rituals from the pledging process, so midterm interview or court of honor. There are options there for you. So, you do have things at your disposal that you do need to consider when really crafting these rituals and scheduling them. And then engagement features. So this is more so for, the brotherhood and communicating during a ritual and, understanding, what needs to be done, what needs to be said. So the chat feature, file transfer, screen share. So this is going to be more so for, for me, what comes to mind is the court of honor presentations. Either the host takes control, so either the MOR, the vice president of membership, et cetera, would take control and work with the pledges to, go side by side, or you can give control to the group who's going and then, ask for them to give it back at the end. then polling opportunities and breakout rooms. So you do have engagement features to play around with when considering, how you're going to build this ritual out and how you're going to, make it most efficient for both the chapter and for, the pledge class as well. All right. So we're going to go into, virtual rituals again. So, more so the formation and foundation of, what's going to be done versus, what it is now. So the rituals that, realistically you are going to be doing are induction and initiation, assuming you take a pledge class, are going to be a part of your process in the fall. So induction, there's a difference between the two. Induction is going to be the first ritual of the semester. It's, the invitation to pledge. It is congratulations, you've received the bid and now you can start our pledging process. They go through that pledging process, and at the end, there is the initiation of members. So that is, when you are granted full membership into Alpha Kappa Psi, you have just as much authority and membership as everyone else in that chapter. And, it is the culmination of however many weeks of work were put into it, whether this is virtual or in person. So, please note the difference between induction and initiation for member reporting. So once again, within 7 days of these reported rituals, those numbers need to be reported to your CERC and the Heritage Center. There have been fines in the past, for chapters that have delayed it or delayed that reporting. And if you do need to change these dates, please run it by, your CA, SD, RD, RMs, and get a chain of command going so that, you have a paper trail ready to, move forward with it. Initiation of faculty members, initiation of honorary members. So if you have someone, on your campus or in your life that you think has been a great influence in the success of the chapter and you'd like to give them, honorary status, there is an initiation process for them, just so they don't have to go through that pledge process. It's traditionally, professors on campus. It's people that, you've worked with from a philanthropic standpoint, people like that who have ultimately made the chapter better, but are not brothers of Alpha Kappa Psi, and you'd like to, have them become a part of our family. Installation of officers. So, I hope all the chapters are doing it as of right now. I hope when you became masters of rituals, you weren't just given a book and said, here you go, good luck. I'm sure there was some sort of transition process involved where, the previous MOR helped you morph into the role you are now. So the installation of officers is more so the formal transition of power from one executive board to the next. It is an official, ritual. It is in your ritual. It is in your ritual books, and it's something you can do to really, signify the importance that each of you have in this role. Because being an executive board member is not easy, regardless of which position you hold. And the Master of Rituals is one, that should be held with reverence. So, it would be a great way for all of you to start off your positions just by getting in there and, being the first thing that you experience becoming the new MOR, and something, that you would theoretically do towards the end of your time as MOR, passing that power on to the next group. And then your graduation ceremony. So, the last thing you really do as a student brother in Alpha Kappa Psi, once all your dues are paid, you're in good standing, you're ready to graduate, you're ready to move on. There, once again, is a ceremony in the ritual book, sending you off, giving the seniors the praise that they deserve, and celebrating that the work they've done over the course of their time at Alpha Kappa Psi. It, vaguely tells you how to continue to volunteer and give back, specifically at the chapter level, because we do want to see our student brothers grow on and, move into great volunteers and great RMT members as well. So, it gives a little bit of opportunity to showcase that and really sends the seniors off in a special way. And then other rituals. So realistically, most of these are not going to apply to you. College chapter installation, you're all part of a college chapter, not going to apply to you. You all have charters. You don't need to be colonized, and none of you are at an alumni chapter right now. So those are other rituals that more so the fraternity handles, the fraternity ritual team, and or a regional director would kind of work towards. You can come to any of these just because you are a brother in good standing, and all of these are great opportunities to meet people from other chapters or future chapters and, see the experience from another perspective. But, with COVID being what it is, this is going to be a tough time to get to any one of these right now. So I think a lot of these are going to be on hold. The pledge-related ones, so the public rituals such as midterm interview and court of honor, are located in the Bridge to Brotherhood Facilitator Guide, so we are going to get into that later. But as of right now, so they're not going to be in your new ritual books that you got back in the fall semester. So key reminders. So these are things that you can use either in a virtual ritual or in an in-person ritual, depending on what's going on with you in the fall, or assuming things get good by the spring, let's say, and we are ready to return to an in-person format. Let's not drop the ball just because we're transitioning back to what we used to do. Let's put some good practices in now, and then when we have the opportunity to really utilize them to their full potential, we'll have a background to move forward with them. So utilize your ritual team. On the assumption that you are at a chapter where you're more than just the MOR, you should be using a rituals team to help guide you through these rituals. They'll help with setup, they'll help with preparation, things like scheduling, things that really, like, as a great e-board member, you would delegate. So you shouldn't be doing everything on your own. It's a stress level thing. It's an organization thing. You guys can really pass off some of these responsibilities to a team when utilized properly. All else fails, if you don't have a team itself, like, please utilize the rest of your executive board to do this. With something like an initiation or an induction, the Master of Rituals really is the center of attention, and at those points, really the most important thing going on right then and there. So, all eyes should be on those responsibilities. All hands should be on deck, regardless if it's an executive board or a team. But it's going to make your life a lot easier if you do have a ritual team and you do have the ability to pass things off on them, so you don't have to do all this on your own. Practice run your rituals. So, think of things like induction and initiation when you were a pledge. You really only view them once from that perspective and that angle before you see it from the side of the brotherhood. And when you saw those things, you see these people in position of reverence and respect for you, that you have for them, conducting the room and showcasing why Alpha Kappa Psi is important. As Master of Rituals, and this might be weird to hear, but it's 100% true, you're now the person that people are going to look up to in the pledge class. You're now the person that people will want to be like one day. So now it's up to you to really set the tone and make sure that idea and that mentality spreads beyond your position and goes to some of the rest of your executive board members. So this is an opportunity for you to show them, the value of these rituals and understand, why they are important. So don't be the Master of Rituals who is scrambling on a Sunday morning and is, looking around the room saying, hey, Brother Johnson, do you want to be the accountant at inductions? If you have these things ran out ahead of time, if you have them prepared in advance, it's going to be so much easier for you the day of. It's going to look a lot cleaner for the pledges for the first time. It's going to, when you're renewing your vows, it's going to help those not in a position to understand why they're in the room in the first place. It's going to be a lot cleaner if it comes prepared and ready to go. And that goes back into practice run of rituals. So you have the scripts all ready to go for induction, things like induction and initiation. So you can go through those. You look at the parts ahead of time, know what you're going to see, know what you're going to be saying, who's going to be standing where, what's going to be what. It's going to be a lot easier if you do these things ahead of time. I've seen a lot of rituals across a lot of schools, and it's very easy to tell when this is someone's first time running in through these things and looking through them versus a chapter who's prepared it in advance and knows what they're saying and knows what they're doing, especially when it comes to reading some of these parts. When you see a brother who doesn't look up from the book, they're mispronouncing words, those are things that can be caught ahead of time, with a little bit of practice. Book rooms early. So, ultimately it's not a one size fits all situation when it comes to getting rooms. If you are at a smaller campus and you do have the luxury of, just showing up at a classroom on a Sunday and be like, let's do it here. Great. That's not something you should take lightly, just because that isn't the reality for a lot of our schools out there. I went to a school with 50,000 students, and ultimately we're competing with hundreds of student organizations on our campus for rooms every single week. So if you're at a school like that, if you're at a chapter like that, work with your executive board, work with the university to get rooms booked in advance. If you're a larger chapter, you might need something like an auditorium to host a ritual. Ultimately, you guys need to take it case by case and understand that it's not one size fits all. It's not something that can be evenly applied across the board, but do your due diligence, work with the people that you can trust on your executive board, work with the school to, get those reservations if you can. I know some schools do have, room booking policies, and they're not as easy as others. But if you have the opportunity to do so, I strongly recommend it. Remove members, collegiate or alumni, if they disrupt or disrespect the ritual. So this is virtual or in person. So, be careful with alumni. Alumni are a great resource for us to succeed. They've, helped morph the chapter to where we are today. They've helped us, they've taught lessons and implemented programs that maybe you use to this day. But the AK side that they were a brother of, or the chapter that they were a brother of, is not the chapter that it is today. And some things realistically are going to be different. If an alumni comes back and does not know what Bridge to Brotherhood is, don't let them influence you off of these rituals. They're written this way for a reason. They've been changed for a reason. Instead, give them the opportunity to be educated on these changes and help them see the value of what's being done here. If they still have questions or concerns, refer them to a chapter advisor, a section director, a regional director, a regional manager, whoever is there to help you through this change, because we will talk to them and have moments to teach them through this and help them understand where it's coming from. And then on the collegiate side of things, you guys know what is appropriate and what is not appropriate and what the environment of a ritual is supposed to sound like. It's laid out at the beginning of initiation what you can and cannot do. If you see an issue going on, in that type of environment that is similar to what is outlined in an initiation, you as master of rituals set the tone here. So I know these are your friends. I know these are your brothers. These are people you care about, but ultimately, you're still a MOR and you create this environment. If one person gets away with it, 1 becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes your whole chapter, where everyone's going to think this is okay and this is the norm. So challenge the status quo and make sure that you're creating a world for both the brothers and, if the pledge ritual, the pledges, so that they can learn, they can understand, and everyone can enjoy themselves during this time. Take a lunch break for longer events. So take into consideration chapters. There are chapters out there that like to have court of honor and initiation the same day in person, let's say. So you have 2.5 hours for court of honor. Let's hypothesize there. 2.5 hours for court of honor, and then another period of time for your initiation. This is starting to become a longer day. Some chapters do fun non-ritual related things afterwards, like pictures with your family tree, things like that kind of make this event longer than it is. So it might be a good idea to squeeze 30 minutes or an hour in the middle there to make sure everyone's fed. If you do have a ritual that does last longer than 3 hours, so in this case this would last longer than 3 hours, you should be providing food, or you should allow others to bring food to an event like this. You can feed them ahead of time. You can, stop in the middle and have a meal there. But, just work with your president, work with your other executive board members to understand the needs of the chapter and what the best moves is moving forward. Communicate dress code and general expectations with pledges, collegiate brothers, and alumni. So virtual or in person, the dress code for rituals until, unless stated otherwise, is business professional. So there are exemptions that can be made in extreme circumstances. So let's look at last semester, for example. Not everyone was prepared. Let's be real, no one was prepared for the shift from in-person to virtual. So some universities forced students to move out of their dorms. Some forced them to just get off campus, but you can keep stuff in your dorm. If I call up my chapter and I say, I left my suit in Gainesville, but I'm back in Tampa, what do I need to do? In that case, you don't make them, drive back to school, pick it up, and drive back. In that case, they would be able to, dress as best they can given those circumstances. But the dress code as a whole, regardless of the format, should be set at business professional unless it is stated otherwise in the actual ritual. Pledge fees should be collected before induction, and initiation fees should be collected before initiation. So this is more so just to help you guys financially, just because that money is due, and if it's not collected, then the chapter is going to pay out of pocket. It's a lot easier to get that money up front from pledges, and then pay the Heritage Center, and then go around asking for money from pledges and new brothers. I understand that it may not be possible for some people to get that money with little notice. If you go from congrats, here's a bid, show up on Wednesday with $48, that turnaround might be too small for people. I understand that. It's just best practice. It's the best thing for the chapter to get in front of. If there are financial difficulties that pledges and new brothers are facing, you can work with them to work out a plan where it's not due all at once. Once again, just work with your chapter advisor, section director, RD, RM, CRC, and we'll create a plan that works for both the chapters and the individuals, just because we don't want to create a financial barrier to prevent someone from pledging. We are open to everyone involved, and that shouldn't be a factor as to why you become a brother. Okay, so getting into the ritual trunk checklist. So these are all the things that you should have in your ritual trunk. So recognition buttons, so these are the pins you get when you become initiated. So you turn in your pledge pin. Those are recycled into the next semester, so you should never have to rebuy them unless they are damaged or lost, or you take a significantly larger pledge class. And then you are given the recognition button when you are initiated. When you do report the initiates, the Heritage Center will send you a group of initiation buttons to match what you've had, the amount that you reported that semester. So you should always have a group of recognition buttons on hand. If you do not have enough or you don't have any, please check in with someone in your RMT, and we will work to get you those recognition buttons and see where the reason behind why you don't have them was. Moving on, 12 flame as votive candles. We don't use candles that have actual wicks, and we don't light them anymore. So just use the battery powered or votive candles. Ritual books. So every chapter got these in the fall semester. They're brand new. You should all still have them. They shouldn't be damaged or written in or anything like that. Just because they're fresh from the bookstore, you should be fine. If you do need something replaced, please once again reach out to someone, and we will coordinate to get those done. Flashlights, plates, master scroll, AK side gavel, and a 6x6 altar cloth with the crest. And then moving on to the robes. So there's going to be 10 robes that are needed in this chest. So the president, master of rituals, executive, merchant, banker, accountant, warden, front guard, rear guard, and guide. And then the final things needed here are the jeweled badge reproduction, the coat of arms reproduction, file box, the ritual trunk, and certificate in lieu of charter. So I know this is kind of a lot on paper, and depending on where you are, you may need a lot of these things. Every single one of these items is available on the AKSI store. You can buy it at an all-in-one bundle, but ultimately, you may not need every single one of those items, because I think it cost about $3,000. Don't quote me, but I know it's in that ballpark. But if you just need 2 robes, let's say, if you just need the merchant and the executive robes, you can buy those independently. So just go through what you have, go through what you need, and move forward with buying it piece by piece. I'm working with the chapters in my regions to make sure that they have theirs up to date. But if your chapters do need a lot of these things, once again, please work with your RMT so we can build it piece by piece instead of all at once, because it can be a substantial financial commitment to have to overhaul your entire ritual trunk. MOR resources. So the bottom 4 here are videos, so we're not going to watch these now because they are lengthy. But how to virtual rituals, a how-to for MORs, the ritual about AKSI, what it is and why it matters, Master of Rituals YouTube playlist, and Officer Development YouTube playlist. So these are all just great resources on how to do your position virtually, understand the reverence and importance of your position, and why it exists, why it's important, and why your chapter needs one. I believe these first 2 are done by Mike Dickerson, who's a former fraternity president. A great resource to have, a great resource to lean on in this fraternity, and someone who truly knows what they're doing at an in-depth level. And then I'm going to click on this Bridge to Brotherhood Facilitator Guide. So this takes you to where it is in My AKSI. So in this My AKSI, it's this file right here on the right-hand side. Oh. All right. So yeah, here's the Bridge Brotherhood Facilitator Guide. I have it open in PDF. So this is what it would look like when you do open it in full. So for the midterm interview and for Court of Honor, you're going to want to go from page 76 to 90. And I cannot stress this enough. The MORs who are in my region who came back from the spring, they know how much I emphasize this. But this is one of the most important documents that you can follow this semester, regardless if you are virtual or in person. So it's going to teach you about how to form an interview team, what to look for the panel chair members, POP, warden guide, how to do midterm interviews step by step, what you need, procedure. There's going to be, now pledges you have, how many rooms should you be using, how many pledges should be interviewed at a time, maximum pledge panel length, and the maximum amount of time allowed for your ritual. Should delays, okay. It's going to help you with setup here, the interview process. So just helping them, get from point A to point B, how to address them, how to start it off. Here's the actual script on how to begin your ritual, how to bring them into the room, how to conduct the ritual, and how to escort them out. And that's it. And then the voting procedure at the end here. And then the Court of Honor presentation. So, what you'll need. And this, for Court of Honor specifically, this will go concurrently with the module section found earlier in the facilitator guide. So this is the ritual portion of it. The module that's found earlier, I don't remember what page offhand, that's more so the Vice President of Membership side of things. So working with the pledges to actually create these presentations, this is more so the physical presentation and evaluation that occurs afterwards. So what are you going to need ahead of time? How many presentation groups there are, number of rooms, setup, and we can go through this at a much greater process. I'm just kind of breezing through it for time's sake because we're almost at 9. And the presentation process. So very similar there. Court of Honor presentation, how they should enter and how they should leave. Ritual question bank. So these are the only questions you can ask during midterm interview and Court of Honor questions. And that's it. So, take a look at that. It's in my AKSI. My MORs are going to be getting this, in an email in about a month or two. No, a month. So you'll have direct access to this. If you don't have an RM or if you don't have a CRSD who is going to be sending this to you, you do know where to find it as of now. And let's go back here. And okay, that's it. So are there any questions? I saw there were things in the chat, so I think there are probably questions.
So Kenny Cheat had asked, considering lowering initiation fees, I'm going to put it on the list for an FAQ because I don't have an official answer yet, and I want to give you guys the right answer.
Right.
So I already noted it. We'll make sure it's on the FAQ to have that.
Thank you very much. And also, if you can, as since I did bring up the initiation fee, it would be great if we can note about the just the brother fee in general. You know, I mean, it is a pretty big economic impact, especially for the South. I'm from Tulane University, so for the South, we do have a lot of people who have been frequently asked. And for my chapter right now, we did decide to, so I'm sorry, to kind of put it in a little context, we are hybrid, but most of the students decide to come back on campus next semester, and we're actually going to start on August 19th. And the majority of the brothers asked about, about the dues, and we have formally canceled all of the social events. So we have promised a good amount of decrease in our brother dues. But of course, if the Heritage Center has any plans to reduce the overall budget, that will be even better for us. So.
Okay, I'll make sure that question's on there.
Anything else?
Yeah, and I'll do my best to make sure I can get you guys the copy of the PowerPoint, just so you guys can have it. As well as the presentation will be available on the YouTube channel if you're gonna want to watch this again. Does anybody have any questions now after the presentation?
I just have a quick question. So for the pledge class that, so like they went through pledging this past spring. So we did like their court of honor ceremony, obviously online, but we didn't do like their official initiation ceremony. So should we just plan to do that like virtually as this semester starts?
Oh, that is a great point, because I know you are not the only chapter in that boat right now. There's a lot of chapters who are in that case. So there is a script written out to do a virtual initiation, just because there are certain elements, I'm sure you can figure out what they are, that would be tough to replicate virtually. So there is an adjusted ritual script out there for initiation. I know I have it somewhere. I need to dig for it, but it does exist. It's something you should probably do within the first week of getting back on campus or going virtual. So definitely something to move forward with.
And then what do we do about distributing their brother pins that they would have got if initiation was in person?
Sure. That's a good question, because no one's asked me that.
So I will say that we haven't sent any of the pledge or the new initiate materials like the certificates and pins in the spring, because everybody was sort of everywhere. If you want those materials, we're happy to send them to you. We just want to make sure that they're going to a solid address, of course, to make sure it gets to you. I know that doesn't quite answer the question. Let me put it on the list, because I hadn't thought about that, individually giving it to them. I'll put it on the list, but overall for your chapter, if your chapter does want them now, we can send it. Just make sure you give a solid address to your CERC.
Okay, yeah, I just wasn't sure about that because I was VPM last semester, so all of my pledges have just been asking me about how that's going to work.
Gotcha.
So I just wanted to see if I could give them any answers, but thank you.
Yeah.
All right, are we in a good spot, everyone? seeing head nods, which is always good. All right. Yeah. So, Alec, if we're good to hear, if we're good to end, I'll sign off.
No, it sounds good. Thank you all for participating and being here tonight. We do have one more town hall. It will be very similar to this, but probably a different group of people on August 12th. So just another time to have a discussion as well, and we might know some more answers by that point. We'll definitely have the FAQ out soon. So we'll have that out before the next town hall. And then if you guys want to, the collaboration group that Steve showed everybody at the beginning in the general session within the MyAKSI is a great place to just go and ask questions. Staff and volunteers look at those too. So if you have any questions that need to be answered right then, or you think about something after this call, feel free to put it into those collaboration groups as well as talking to other MORs. But otherwise, thank you guys for being on again, and have a great night.